Thank you very much. In the month of April, Philip and I had the privilege of flying around the world in 30 days. And as a result, we had an opportunity to have lots of conversations with leaders in different cities, and they were all surprisingly similar. They went like this. Firstly, everyone was concerned about the state of the world right now. Secondly, everybody wanted to do something about it. Thirdly, nobody had any idea what to do. So heads were down, and there was a sense of hopelessness. And psychologists tell us that hopelessness is a dangerous thing. If you're hopeless for too long, you end up dying early. And we would then talk about our conviction that dense networks of senior leaders have a disproportionate opportunity to bring about change, and you could feel the anticipation and the energy return to the room. About 100 years ago now, there was a great debate. Is it possible to reverse a declining culture? Otto Spengler was the first one in. And his argument was this: cultures are like organisms. They're born, they grow, sometimes to a great height. But once they start to decline, you have had it. It's over. Don't waste your energy trying to reverse it. Arnold Toynbee responded with the largest book of history that's ever been published. And in 12 volumes, he looks back over history at every time that cultures have been reversed. He said this. He said, there is something spiritual about culture, which means there's always a chance of rebirth. And that rebirth is something that our continent, the continent of Europe, has seen at least 5 times in 500 years. I'm thinking of the Renaissance. I'm thinking of the Reformation and Counter-Reformation that followed it. I'm thinking about the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution. The Renaissance really kicked off when Petrarch, the poet, got himself a mission. As he read these classical texts and appreciated both their creativity and their clarity, he realized that if he fused them with his deep conviction about the Christian faith, then a new culture could emerge, one that spoke of beauty and character and rationality, which could wake Europe from the slumber of the Middle Ages. So what did he do? He traveled incessantly building a network. His biographers say he got to know everyone who mattered if you wanted to build a network for the renewal of Europe. He got to know emperors and popes, educators, priests, and wealthy patrons. And it was said that the force of Petrarch's character and his absolute conviction that this was the right thing to be doing won many of them. They wanted to be in on this thing. And then in a time where travel was difficult, he would write and write and write to keep people together, to keep ideas on track. Petrarch was a poet at a time where poets were celebrities. Shelley later talked about poets as the unacknowledged legislators of Europe. That was the sort of influence that he had. In the first generation, he persuaded individuals of his convictions. In the second generation, their successors started to shape their institutions as a result. 300 years later, that mixture of Christianity and humanism was still shaping Europe as Queen Elizabeth I, Protestant Queen Elizabeth, is taught to think that way, and the Jesuit Roman Catholic mission agency called the Educators of Early Modern Europe taught it all over Europe. These networks of senior leaders did 5 things. They had the imagination to see how a set of ideas could become a better future. They then refined these ideas. They then made these ideas cool. They then gained momentum, and then they transformed the institutions that they were part of, embedding those ideas in them, so society was changed. Let's come down from 10,000 feet and ask, what does this look like in the granular or everyday? And to do that, let's come to England in the second half of the 18th century as the scientific revolution breaks across Europe. And a small group of men who called themselves the Lunar Society, who used to meet once a month near Birmingham. Their biographer said this group of gentlemen scientists were at the forefront of just about every cutting-edge project that there was, whether it was in science or technology or the arts or even in agriculture. They were a curious mix, this network. There was a man of means. He was able to host them, for he had space, and he was able to invest in their projects and ideas. There were a number of scientists, all different. One of them had discovered oxygen. Another had developed the steam engine. A third had done the early work on evolution. There was a social reformer who gave the group a conscience. There was a polymath who, it was said, wrote with a flowing pen. You imagine their gatherings as they would arrive, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the time in the Georgian age when you had dinner. Men, their wives, men, women, and children, men and women round the table, children running in and out, the table stocked with wine and fish, cheese, syllabubs, pies, laughter filling the room as friendships are rekindled. When the meal is over, the table is cleared and they go to work. The dining room becomes the design room. The kitchen becomes the laboratory. They get their machines out and they work. And they work, it was said, often late into the night, or even for 2 or for 3 days. The biographer says that their success was in their informality. There were no officers, no official processes for making decisions, no recording of minutes. This was personal. It wasn't just professional. This was informal. Relationships were at the heart. And it was great fun. And they changed the world. It was Richard Weaver, just after, in the late 1940s, who wrote a book entitled Ideas Have Consequences. He'd been a big fan of everything that we've heard today. He would have said ideas will run once they're out there. I want to suggest that title, Ideas Have Consequences, needs actually a qualification. I think ideas have consequences when they're linked to dense networks of senior leaders who will imagine how those ideas can create a better future, who will refine those ideas, who will make those ideas cool, who will develop momentum, and then embed them in the institutions of which they're responsible in order to change the world. Thank you very much.